Hello and welcome to the Mage the Ascension 20th anniversary panel for Onyx Path Con 2024. My name is Terry Robinson. I'm the host of Mage the Podcast and an all-around Mage enthusiast. Joining me today are Travis Legg and Hiromi Kota, and I will let them introduce themselves. Hiromi, who are you and what have you worked on in Mage?
Hi, Tai. Well, Hiromi, I mean. I'm Hiromi. I have worked on, oh, hell. Let me let
Pretty
me get
much.
lists.
Yeah. You said, oh,
Uh,
hell, and I'm like, Book of the Fallen, Kalimdor. No,
I mean, technically, yes.
yeah.
My bit for Book of the Fallen was very small. I was just like a consultant on that. But
Mhm.
Bizarre Tales and Unusual Characters, Weird Wonders, and Revolutionary Magic, we'll be talking about those soon. I was the developer for those. Faces of Magic, Gods and Monsters, Lore of the Tradition, Rich Bastard's Guides to Magic, Technocracy Reloaded, Operatives Dossier, which was the companion to Technocracy Reloaded, and Victorian Age Mage, I think is everything. Uh, Pretty sure that's everything. So yeah, I've done some Mage stuff.
Yeah. You have, and we certainly appreciate your work doing that. And Travis, what have you done with M20?
Oh, not much. I I developed or co-developed Technocracy Reloaded. I developed Operatives Dossier. I wrote on Weird Wonders and Revolutionary Magic, I believe. Um, I developed St. James Street, the Victorian Age jumpstart that was just released. I developed the Technocracy Reloaded jumpstart. Um, and I've written short stories in Truth Beyond Paradox and the Mirror Shades, the Technocracy Reloaded um, anthology. And that is probably like a very, very, very close second of my favorite pieces of prose I've ever written. I really had a good time writing that story.
Hmm.
Hopefully people enjoy it. But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So we got a lot of people who've done a lot of Mage so far. And unlike kind of all the other X20 editions,
Oh, right.
Mage still has new stuff coming out.
Yeah, I was gonna
So,
Lore of the Traditions. I also developed that. Oops. My bad.
and that boat containing our sweet, sweet copies will one day be here. And I look forward to cracking that open and then immediately finding a spelling error that I completely missed in a section I wrote. So I think from what I understand, that's kind of a ritual that one has to go to.
Gaiman's Law.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So let's start with the outstanding texts that still haven't made their way out into the world that are kind of slowly making their way through development. Onyx Path has a lot of products with a lot of people doing a lot of things going in a lot of different directions. And we have at least four outstanding for Mage the Ascension. Let's start with Victorian Age, Weird Wonders, and Revolutionary Magic. What is that? What's in it? And what should we expect to find when we finally get to crack open our PDFs?
So I was developer for that, and Travis wrote some goodies for that.
Yeah.
I'll let Travis speak on what he wrote for it in a little bit. But while I'm monopolizing the mic, I'll give a quick overview of it. It is pretty much what it sounds like from the title. There are Weird Wonders, which is naturally about all sorts of cool trinkets, talismans, and devices. Um, One that I want to highlight because it's just really fun and interesting to me is Otto's one-man band, uh, which is a trans man's mage's instrument to capture the attention of folks. Like, uh, people told him that because they didn't think he was a man, that he couldn't be a one-man band, and they were fucking wrong. Uh, and basically anything that you want to do crowd work with in Mage is made better with the Otto's one-man band. So if you want You want a more social scene, that's a thing for you. Uh, Second bit on the title is Revolutionary Magic. So that chapter is just chock full of spells. It lets you do all kinds of cool things. Uh, my Mac decided to throw a thumbs up for some reason.
I saw that. I like that your Mac is supporting Otto as one man's band as well.
Yeah. Um, One of them is also a lot of fun and socially um, oriented. It's called Making the Mark, with Mark in this case meaning a mark who you're going to con or
Mm.
do something to. In circus terms, a rube. Uh, so if you want to find someone who has recently lost a loved one and who has a gold pocket watch in a crowd, that's trivial. You can just find that person and then begin messing with their minds and doing all of the social goodness that you want to them. Uh, like I could see that spell just making at least an entire scene, if not a whole fucking uh um session. Like you could just base the whole thing in that, and that'll be great. Um, I don't have all of chat visible, but I just saw. Can you tell if any of the spells in Revolutionary Magic is based on Hell's Coming with Me scene in Tombstone? Yes.
Definitively.
Yes, in fact. I think it might actually be called
Hell's
Hell's
coming
Coming
with me.
with
Coming with
Me.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of us who are cultural Luddites, what is being described? I guess Philistines. Yes, for those of us who are Philistines, what does that mean?
Romy, do you want to take this one or do you want me to take this one?
I would like you to take it, please.
There is a beautiful scene in what I would argue is the best Western film of all time, Tombstone,
Old
uh,
Man Logan.
in which Wyatt Earp has one of the cowboys kind of pinned down on the ground outside of a train station. And he basically tells him, you run and you go tell all your friends that I'm coming and hell is coming with me. And the magical effect that this has is basically like you can kind of put out into the world. It's almost like a mimetic sort of spread of like terror that you unleash on a person and their associates, which is pretty fun. So yeah, it's a pretty iconic. It's an iconic scene in a film full of iconic scenes. If you haven't watched Tombstone, you should remedy that immediately after Onyx Pathcon.
You
And
tell one person that hell's coming with you. They tell two friends that hell's coming with you. They tell two friends. Before you know it, everyone knows that hell's coming with you. And then they don't fuck with you.
the opposite of arcane. Um,
Kind of.
so you mentioned
uh,
revolutionary magic. One of
mhm.
kind of the difficult lifts that Victorian age core had is it didn't give a huge amount of space to talk about your characters in that revolution part. Do we get any more information on maybe what it is like to be boots on the ground during this time of change? And kind of to you, Hiromi, as an author, what kind of marked the important moments of revolution within kind of the Victorian age setting?
So yes, there's a chapter dedicated to revolutions of the era. And both a blessing and a curse is that there are so many revolutions going on in the era that there's something for you to do in basically anywhere you want to mention. Like there's the gun war in Basutoland in southern Africa. There are multiple revolutions going on in France, most notably 1848, which is a little bit before Victorian era proper, but I mean it's a big one.
Mm.
There's uh, revolutions going on in Italian states. There's the Meiji Restoration in Japan, where everything is changing, and some people are very upset about that. And historically, they do terribly. uh, but what happens in your game is, up to you and your players. There's the Mexican-American War. There, fuck, there's the American Civil War. That's that's huge. Yeah, there's stuff going on all over the place. And the curse part of that is that because there's so much going on, we had kind of the challenge of how do you fit everything in and give everyone good plot hooks.
Mhm.
Um, and I think we did a pretty good job with that. Um, the challenge there is that like we couldn't go in depth, like super in depth into things. Like a lot of the revolutions of the era would probably just do well with their own chapter, which we couldn't do. Like that's just not feasible
Yeah.
for
or book. Like
Yeah, it seems like any of
Yeah.
these events could be a campaign book
right.
if this were a bigger thing,
It's very
or a
complicated
different game.
stuff. Very
Yeah.
complicated stuff that we have to paint with, as broad a brush as we can paint it with while remaining respectful to those struggles, if that makes sense.
But it sounds like it
Absolutely.
does kind of help bridge that gap that we have from the core book that's like, here's the state of the world, to here are the game bits that allow you to magify the particular political or regional conflicts or global conflicts that you want to have in your game.
Mhm.
That it really lets you run a game on the front lines, whether that be domestic revolution, the Chartist Revolution in Britain, or the one of the earlier Russian revolutions, or one of the colonial revolutions that's occurring, or colonial conflicts that's happening at the frontier of empire, also known as invasion of homelands. So it sounds like it kind of bridges that space.
Yeah, and because I'm me, I made sure to make it as global as possible.
Okay.
So like uh there's stuff going on in East and Southeast Asia, South Asia. Like there's South South America. Like there's stuff everywhere.
Isn't
Uh
correct me if I'm wrong? Isn't the gun war covered in Africa?
yes. Yep. The gun war has its own write-up, which is I have it open.
As in like the Basuto Gun War?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Let's see. That is depending on how Layout wants to play with it, about 1 page, maybe a little bit more.
Mhm.
Again, depends on how it's laid out. But uh, I have layout math in my head. I can say it's about a page.
So it sounds like a lot of this is going to be ripe for anyone who finds a bit that they find particularly interesting to hopefully go run their live play or to put something on the Storyteller Vault. So that is
Yes.
always my my hope, especially if someone brings particular regional expertise. Maybe someone wants to write a text on the development of the sewers of London or something like that, which is something I'm chewing on for an actual play. But uh,
I I hadn't thought about that for years, but like when we were first talking about Victorian age, I had the sewers of London in my head
mhm.
because it was such a massive undertaking. Uh, and I just looked at the clock and I'm putting us way behind schedule.
Yeah, it's all right.
Nah, time 3. We'll make up for it at the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 11th sphere. We'll be fine. But um, but yeah, as you mentioned, it's kind of an interesting thing, and I get into that more in later parts. Travis, anything that Hiromi hasn't gone over that you kind of want to draw attention to, or alternatively, anything where you're like, "Hey, this got me excited," or "This is something that people may not think is in here, but that is." So one of the takeaways I have from Hiromi is just the sheer global reach of it. That if that last chapter in the core rulebook had to book and is just full of scattered plot hooks that again, in another universe, we get to follow up on. Travis, was there anything that really caught your attention?
I think I can get
In
all three of your questions in one. But
Nice.
go ahead.
No,
You
I
had
would.
something else?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. So one of the things that one of the best experiences for me in working on this book was I got to work pretty closely with James Sembrano because I believe, if Hiromi recalls properly, when I was approached to write this book, I was like, listen, I kind of bounce off of the Victorian era, but I sure as hell don't bounce off the Wild Wild West. So
Yeah.
I'm going to put some info over there. And so we did some. There was an old rote that I had used in a Mage LARP
Mhm.
like 20 years ago. James and I worked out that refined it, which basically ambushing people with arrows from the Umbra.
Mhm.
So they're in the physical realm, and you're not. That was fun. But there was one of the things we worked on were indigenous ventures. So uh, basically a parallel system to what the syndicate uses for ventures to
Mhm.
reflect the high degrees of like agricultural science and terraforming that were going on at the time, to get water to certain places, so on and so forth, like that. So we had to build out kind of a system to show that the syndicate doesn't have a monopoly on that type of magic. That type of magic can also represent these older practices and processes, and that was really exciting and really cool to be able to navigate all of the particulars of. And I'll credit to James for his extensive knowledge of that history.
Hmm.
So it was super cool.
Approximately how large is this companion text in pages? Is this like a 50 to 75 or shorter, or where does this come out approximately, if anyone knows?
Um, I can tell you exactly. Uh, I'm looking at the wrong book.
42. No, it's more.
Yeah.
Just over 30,000 words. So
That's that's like what 45 to 50 pages depending, plus
yeah.
the bookend material. And I have to say, for the M20 line, those little supplemental books have just been awash with good, clean fun. Operatives Dossier just packs it in there. Where in the core book, you're like, this is what it's like having a family within the technocracy. And then the companion book is like, we can't do things in Antarctica because it's full of too many dinosaurs. And you're like, oh, yeah, I missed that technocracy. Both of those exist. Likewise with Rich Bastard's Guide. The section on the cloud is still one of the greatest bits of mage writing I have ever seen. And amen to whoever did that. That book is just sheer joy. So I
Thank you.
it's delightful. So again, pick up those texts, show the love. Not everything will fit into your game, but something will. We finally get a good system for cocaine for Mage, and I'm glad for that. So thank you for adding that as well. The 11th sphere.
I wrote that too.
So
One,
yeah.
one of the cool to piggyback off your point though, like one of the cool things about these smaller supplements is that because the M20 core and the sort of core companions, and by that I mean Technocracy Reloaded, Lore of the Traditions, because those are so comprehensive in the ground that they cover, it really does let us just have super fun with the smaller stuff and cover and delve into, because the firm foundation's built, right? So we get to really play, and it's a lot of fun.
Um, so the next one is Bizarre Tales and Unusual Characters, which I got to write on. And that was pretty fascinating, partially because to tell a brief story, we Mage the podcast did an episode to promote the Kickstarter for Victorian. The guest indicated that, hey, there would be stretch goals, and I said something about, so if you want there to be a umbral supplement for Victorian, is this word to include the comment? The reply was yes. And Josh Heath, friend of the show's, started a campaign to get Onyx Path to have me write a Victorian umbral book without my permission and without Onyx Path's knowledge, which just kind of took off from there. I get an email from Matthew Dawkins that says, I don't know what you're doing, but if you're doing something, please stop. And I'm like, what are you talking? Oh, my bad. And then eventually this thing comes out. I think Hiromi looks at the comments and goes, I think we'll have Terry do a Victorian Umbral thing. And I'm like, yes, the lamest Inception campaign of all time to got to exist. So to me, for bizarre tales and unusual characters, like Victorian lends itself to a few arenas of play. You have your street level version, like, and unless you're Dutch Levantine under the King Dynasty or the Tokugawa Shogunate, you've probably never seen a middle class before. So that's going to be kind of a new thing in this era. This is an era where cities are exploding in size. London goes from 1 million to it winds up adding a million people a decade for 60 years. New York increases tenfold in size due to the Erie Canal. St. Petersburg goes from 400,000 to 1.4 million. We have the themes of colonialism, where someone comes to your area, takes your stuff. And in addition to that, the new part says, you're now going to follow my cultures and belief and not just demand tribute or periodically take things. This is the era where we have the first modern masters. We had Porthos and Stephen Trevennis that already existed in the game that were very powerful, but that was because they themselves were powerful. And the Victorian era is kind of the first time we get people who are powerful because they sit at the head of an organization, because they have that standard oil that they control or what have you. Um, and some other groups within Mage kind of realized this ahead of time. I'd argue the crafts were the first to kind of realize that as a group, there is a collective power. The technocracy is figuring out during this era, and the traditions are trying to catch up. So there's this like middle level of domain play that one can do. But kind of the last part is, what do the other worlds look like during this time? And that's kind of the part that I focused on. My theory being the fortress of government is going to be fascinating. What does it mean when the concept of nation state is forming? What types of identity does that wind up displacing? What is the battle for the mindscape of humanity going to look like during this period? So this is a case where the text has a lot more abstract or high power characters in it. This is where you're dealing with a lot of people that probably have an arete of 5 or higher. And it was super fun to work on. Like, what are the weird Victorian horrors? This is the trail end of this is going to be including the works of Robert Chambers, the Yellow King mythos forms. We have the works of Lord Dunsany and Ambrose Bierce creating the first modern weird horror. What is that doing within the psyche? And there are creatures and so on that kind of describe it. And it was super exciting to talk about that. I get to describe the penumbra in a bunch of different cities around the world, but that is only one small part of one part of this book. Hiromi, kind of what was the rest of the book?
So the book was sort of designed to cover what I consider kind of the three general levels of play within Mage. So like there's street level stuff. There's a whole chapter on street level stuff where like your mages with like one or two arete, like you're not bringing down the house, but you
Mhm.
have just enough awareness of the weird things in the world to make them attracted to you and to have more problems than a normal person. Um, there's sort of global issues where you are trying to solve problems that are if not like if not international, at least national, which is kind of a new thing in the era. Not new to Mage, but new historically, where like um, a problem in one country sort of spills out into another. And then there's the third level, which is just all of the weird fun stuff that's beyond the gauntlet. And like it's just there's a lot of stuff going on with the sort of three levels, the like local, global, and umbral. Um, and in addition to uh, the um, the plot hooks and fun stuff like that, there's also the second part of the title, unusual characters, which is just a whole bunch of characters who uh, you haven't gotten a chance to see before, or who have been sort of pulling strings. And they're also at sort of all three levels. So you have people to bounce things off of. Um, and some of them are just like really out there and fun, like Satyr, Phil Sathros Bricado. He made someone who might be a mummy. Uh, so if you need someone to be a big powerful baddie, then maybe pull them in. And you will have absolutely wild things going on with them.
That's going to be the
Uh,
real M5 Mummy fifth. They're just going to, I can't wait for that marketing campaign, and all the Mage fans get really excited. And then we just see that bandage come up and we're like, dink, we missed it.
yeah, I mean, TTRPGs fans see Eminem, and right now they think mutants and masterminds, but
Mm,
give it a couple years and
yeah,
they'll think mages and
some
mummies.
mummies. Um, One question from the chat was from this Dixie Cyanide character was, do Travis and Terry shop at the same void, or are they bespoke? Travis and I have different imponderable voids. Mine is just a black cloth background, and I think Travis does Travis's digitally. So yeah, we have different voids.
This is all
So
natural, baby. It's just
uh,
I'm like Cloak.
yeah, I could flip this over into the white side, but the problem is I would then just blend into it and just be a floating pair of eyes, and that's really eerie. I've tried that one before. It's kind of concerned. Um, so the any other thoughts on kind of the Victorian era before we depart for something more contemporary? Do we want to talk about the jumpstart now, or wait till the end?
Hey, let's hang out in Victorian times before
Okay.
we.
Yeah.
And as far as the jumpstart goes, the biggest things I want to point out are it's an incredible story that was written by Rachel Judd. It's really fun. It really, I think, does an amazing job of presenting you with the overall themes and feel of the Victorian age in a remarkably tight package, which is not necessarily an easy feat. All of the characters that were created for it were super cool. And that was Rachel and Krister both had worked on those. And it's just a fun story, but it's also a passionate story, and is a lot of room to really dive into the emotional impacts of how some of the larger realities of that time of history are affecting people individually. It was really, I thought, masterfully executed. All credit to Rachel and Krister for that. I just kind of
Mm.
pointed and said, "Hey, neat, do that." So they really did a fantastic job on it. And it does have robust rules in it. I think you can. I would say you can run it pretty well with the rules that are in there. I think the way that the spheres were presented in this one, I think, are probably the best I've seen them presented in a short version.
Mhm.
And obviously, it's not nearly with the nuance of the complexity that you get from M20, but it is enough to get you through the story. And I was really, honestly, pretty pleased with the way that it all turned out.
Yeah, that plus what is in the quick start, plus any like Mark Hope's sphere quick reference that's available for free on the Storyteller Vault. That is the thing that you can plunk down at a table and just get through without even having to touch the big purple tome, or in the case of Victorian era, the slightly smaller purple tome.
Right.
So we got that going for us.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really plug and play. It's really in pretty good shape. Very impressed with it, and I'm very happy to see that it is finally out there in the world. I'm anxiously awaiting my print copy to arrive in the next day or two.
Nice. I also like that this formally introduces the first character seemingly into Mage with a BMI above 30, and that's very nice.
Yeah,
So,
the art was really good, and we really tried to, again, credit to Rachel and Krista for the characters that they came up with.
Mhm.
It made cooking up the art notes really fun.
Mhm.
And I think they're all fun in their own way, you know. So I definitely was impressed with the art.
Yep. And the other thing is we also get more examples of the really awesome tradition symbols that were introduced in Victorian, which to me are like the real sleeper hit of those. Likewise, the ones we got that are only available kind of as a background image. So step one for me was to pull those into a PDF editor and like grab those just in case they would somehow go away because those graphics are amazing. Um, Hiromi, did you have any involvement or any thoughts about the seance on St. James Street?
I was not involved with it, but I would like to direct people's attention to the chat where there's a link. You can go buy it,
Nice.
because it's rad, and
True story.
you should buy it.
In fact, I'm gonna pin that.
Oh,
Hitting that,
neat.
John.
There we go. Yeah, thank you.
Anything more on the Victorian era before we go to Forgotten and Forbidden Orders or Faces of Magic?
Nothing springs to mind.
Don't think I
Just
have anything.
just the Dawkins directive is what I'm going to start calling it, which is if you have purchased any of the Mage books or any of our books, please head over to drivethroughrpg.com, leave a rating and a review of whatever you've enjoyed. Those are immensely helpful to us. They help the audience identify books that they might enjoy. They
Mhm.
help us, give talking points, things to promote. It's just it's short of buying a book. It's the most helpful thing that you can do if you want to see more of our work out there. Best way to do that for us, the best sort of avenue of word of mouth is to get those ratings and reviews on DriveThruRPG. So please, if you're a fan of Mage, go through and leave your ratings and reviews of the things we've worked on. We would love to see that.
The other thing is when you do leave a review, that is very helpful for future purchasers to make sure they're getting what they think they're getting. A lot of times I'll stumble upon a review where someone says, "Hey, I normally play these types of games, and this supplement really helped me with this particular thing." And it really helps prevent people from buying a book that they don't that wasn't necessarily for them or that they weren't going to enjoy in the first place, and then leave that 1-star review and pan it for something ridiculous. So those reviews can really help shape kind of what the discussion around the text is or who ultimately decides to see it. I think one of my favorite things is when like a book is released and it starts at the bestseller top and then it starts going down as is normally the case, and then the reviews and so on start coming in, and then it like ticks back up one or two as people go, no, 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 this isn't just hype. This is actually good. And I hope that winds up happening with these Mage titles as well.
Well, thank you.
So, um, the next one we have is Forgotten. For what's the formal title?
Forgotten and Forbidden Orders.
Okay. Forgotten Crafts and
Oh,
Forbidden Crafts and
get it.
Forgotten Orders. There we go. Um, the subtitle is A Handbook for Mages on the Outside. This is a text that Travis Romy and I got to kind of at least thumb through, and it is fascinating. So, like, just a high level overview. It is a book on the crafts and disparate alliance. The traditions are kind of strongly political factions. Pardon me. The traditions are strongly political factions that are inflected by various cultures. You'll often see a simplification that says all Hermetics are Western Europeans, or all members of the Akashiana are from China, or something like that. Those are gross simplifications that really leave out a lot of the nuance from these big groups. Crafts, on the other hand, do tend to be more culturally focused. The Disparate Alliance was introduced in M20 as a core group of crafts that were looking to do something. And it could either be just how much do we need to band together to preserve our ability to continue to exist during the Ascension War, to maybe we're a mutual aid society, to something else. A bunch of options are presented in the core book. It could be that they think the technocracy has been infiltrated by the Nefandi, that they think the traditions have been infiltrated by the Nefandi. The glory of the Future Fates invention is you go anywhere. We also get the single most feckin' paragraph in M20 where it's like, here's some other crafts that might exist and might join. And it's like, here's a bunch of hypertech ninjas. Also, here's some weird British people. And anytime you can get both of those on a list, thumbs up to that. The Yitziat, the Time Sorcerers, the Balamob, the Jaguar Priests, and so on. In Book of Secrets, we got a little bit more information about how the disparate alliance operated, and kind of the one of the ideas that we get that makes them special is the sleeper protectorates, that there's a group of people that they feel it is their job to protect, and if you start messing with that group, they're going to come down on you. um and that was kind of all we got, and this book kind of blows that open in terms of just sheer amount of information that we get. Um, we get an update on what those future crafts could do. We get an update on what the Itza'at are up to, and I was thrilled by that. It's kind of interesting to see what happens when a bunch of time sorcerers are like, we're going to sit this one out. I'm like, the guys with the mastery of time are sitting it out. What does that mean? Dink. It also focuses on how these are not strictly cultural entities, that they also have personal relationships. And that's something I appreciate, because one of the best parts of any good game is always going to be kind of the strange bedfellows that you run into. I always like the fact that the Syndicate and the Hollowers are kind of the only two postmodern groups in Mage that really recognize what they're doing. And I always thought that they would be good frenemies. We get a deep dive on the history of Nagoma. We never got that before. A bunch of these were originally done in Book of Crafts under second edition, but some of them were introduced later, and we never got a history for that. We get a dive into the like the ancient libraries and kind of learning centers of Kush, Kermit, and ancient Mali. We get a section on Templar chronomancy. We find out what Aura Calcum is. They're like, nope, only the technocracy has premium. We've got this other thing though, and when you see it, you're like, okay, I can see what you're doing there. We get flavorful mechanics on the Taftani mitigating paradox, the cryptic relationship between the Ali Batini and some entity that is feeding them secrets. The relationship with the Muftashak al Noor, which is kind of a West Asian technomantic group that did not join the Order of Reason for a variety of reasons, depending on the edition. We get the festivals of the Hippolytans. My favorite word in the book is probably Amazonomachia, because that just rolls off the tongue. We get information. We finally get something that says, yes, the Bata'a are huge. This is how big they are. Like, there's this one throwaway line in second edition that's like, oh yeah, the Bata'a are bigger than the Euthanatoi, which makes sense because you're talking about a population of over 200 million that they're drawing from. And we get information on both of the Solificati. Um, that's a running joke because at one point they mentioned in Mage that there's only 6 Solificati out there, and I'm like, great, yeah, you and the Bata same level. So I thought it was super fun to be able to thumb through that and see anything. Travis or Hiromi, was there anything you saw in there that you're particularly excited about or you hope to see?
I thought it was really cool that there's so much flavor for it. Like I was just sort of like scrolling through to see how much the uh Loma had for just like fleshing them out, and
Mhm.
not not just describing them in sort of clinical terms, but giving like actual flavor
Mhm.
and discussing like what they feel like, and like how like what life is like there within the group. And I think it ends up being about like 4 pages of just like um what it's like inside the group. And that's in addition to the rest of the write-up for them. And like that's something that's kind of carried through the book, where like you get a good sense of who these people are, what they're doing, and like if you want to set your chronicle there, like what your chronicle is going to be like, or at least what it could be like.
Mhm.
Uh Naturally, home games get to do whatever they want to do, and if you want to buck trends, go ahead and buck those trends. But you get a firm starting place. So like that's always fun.
Yeah, with only 7 to 9,000 words to work with, any author is going to strain to fit everything in. But my first thought about thumbing through was just how rich it was. as Hiromi mentioned, it is not clinical. It is littered with terms and peoples and places. We get information on what paradigms and practices fit best. We get a few rotes or a few wonders. We get a bunch of merits, and I think it's super cool that of any group in Mage that should kind of have their own merits, it really seems like the crafts would be a natural home for it. Travis, did you get a chance to thumb through it at all?
I did not get a chance to peruse it yet, but I am very much looking forward to it, just based on the fact I believe Steffi Devan was the developer on it, and
Yep.
she does spectacular work. Um, I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I can tell you sight unseen that it's going to be good.
Yeah.
That's uh, yeah. We at the time that it was being made, it was being written literally like right after or right with it. It was mixed up in the development process of Lore of the Tradition. So I was so laser beam focused on that I didn't pay any attention to what was going on over there. And now I just, as we got the manuscript recently, I've just been busy with convention stuff and didn't get a chance to go through it, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we got this
Steffi's
manuscript
awesome,
last night.
yeah,
Mhm.
Steffi's dope though. Like, I mean,
Oh
she's
yeah.
an amazing developer, so it's in incredible hands. I can't imagine it'll be anything less than stellar.
The big
Uh,
feeling I always get with books like this is the worst thing that generally happens is, pardon me, it's not going to be a case where nothing will be bad. At worst, it's going to be that's not what I would have done with them, but you're still going to get a fully elucidated vision. And to me, that's just great to see. Sorry, I cut you off, Romy.
yeah, no worries. Someone in the chat asked how much information there was about the Batin, and scrolling through and just by raw word count, it's at least 8 pages. So like if you wanted more information about them and you wanted to get like a good in-depth view, you're gonna get one. Like it's a pretty hefty write-up. And like this is a large book. I don't know. Well, I guess I could do math. I could do math and find out how big the book is, but it is pretty sizable. Like right now, I have 2 chapters up, and they total 50,000 words, and there's more than 2 chapters.
Yeah,
So
it's about 75,000 words in total, which is going to come out to probably around 100 pages or so, give or take. Seemingly. Specifically on the Ali Batin, we do get information on kind of what a modern web of faith could look like and what it means to be engaged with that. We get a little bit of an update on the path of occultation. So it is nice that even though we had Lost Paths, which gave us a third of a book on the Ali Batin, that there's still more information. And it's just the thing I like about it is dripping with flavor. It's one of those things that over time books authors figure out how to write a book better, and this is very clear born from that longer incubation period where we get to have the setting, the systems, and the games all kind of point at each other more directly than what you get at the beginning of an edition when everyone's just kind of figuring things out. So the question was also, when is that coming out? That is currently in art notes prep. So as of the last release roundup for May 2024, this is the handoff between production and art. So there still needs to be an art buy. There still needs to be art direction. It still needs to go into layout. It still needs to go into proofing. I would be very surprised if it were this year. I in no way represent Onyx Path, but it's still got a bit to go. The text though is largely in place, seemingly. Those who actually work with Onyx Path more directly, would you care to comment on
I would love to
that?
comment on
Yeah.
this. Books at Onyx Path come out when books at Onyx Path come out.
Okay.
We we post the updates because we are Onyx Path are firm believers in transparency when dealing with the production process and what goes on. If you look at Rich's blogs, sometimes we'll some of our print books maybe take a little bit longer to get out the door
Mhm.
than one might expect, or there are delays or things. But these are all being detailed in the Monday meeting notes, and that's part of the reason why we don't do release dates. We make sure that things are going through the entirety of the process, that the quality control is there, that we're, uh, doing things, and that we're keeping the audience informed as things move along the stages. But there's no way to predict it. We often don't know what's coming out on Wednesday for sure till Monday.
Mhm.
So the best thing you can do is keep your eye on Ian's monthly breakdown and on the weekly Monday meeting notes if you want to know kind of where a book is. And just if I can supplement that by also pointing out that some of the stages that are listed in that production breakdown, things can seem like they're sitting in a place for a long time. That doesn't mean there's not a lot of work being done on it. Going from your art notes prep to getting art back from the artist is many, 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 many steps of back and forth, of sorting things out, of getting updates from Mike about what we're gonna do for each page, thing like that. So like it's even a step move on there is a process. And while we're all about being transparent, I think that it would get a little overwhelming if we mentioned every single step in that process. I think it would blend into a white noise that no one would understand, ourselves included. So things will come out when they come out.
And obviously, there's that book that I want to most have come out, but there's also the book that the Exalted fan wants to most come out, and so on. And there's only so many hands to work on any given project.
Yeah,
So
and again, I feel confident in saying this now, especially as now I'm part of the Monday meeting team. I can tell you, it's not about favorites. It's not about, oh, we like this line, so we
yeah,
really want to make sure we get this Exalted book out first we're particularly excited about this, or we're really Trinity focused. We're focused on what's closest to completion and at its actual readiness point. That's the driver. Making sure we've got things right. Sure, there are strategies and there are projections and there are times we're aiming for and whatnot, but it's really about making sure that we've got that. Onyx Path has been in business for 13 years and hasn't missed a Wednesday release to the best of my knowledge.
Hmm.
And that is done by having that process where there's kind of always things in the hopper and making sure that you've always got a few things lined up that are almost ready to go or that are ready to go.
and I've never talked to an OPP person when I asked them how they were doing. The answer wasn't busy or very busy or "Ah!"
Uh,
which, yeah,
they do work us. Send help. No, it's good.
yeah.
Someone in the chat asked if there was going to be information about the crafts and their sort of relationship with magic, and the answer is yes. Like, not only is there like an overview of like how their instruments shape things and how their worldview shapes the spheres for them, but there's also rotes for them. So like um, craft specific rotes as well as merits and flaws. So like if you want to have someone just fully customized to be a member of one of the crafts, that's very much an option. Um, Also, a fun little thing that I wanted to highlight is that the Kopaloa have a new name. They are the Kahu,
Mhm.
because it is a more fitting name for the group within the Hawaiian language. Kahu meaning guardians. So,
They're now
uh,
known as the Kui Jin. Um, but but
I will fucking fight you.
whenever I need Hiromi's attention, I just whisper that darkly in a corner, and suddenly they appear, and they'd be like, "What?" But uh, as the text approaches completion for Lore of the Traditions, I got to talk to 7 of the 8 authors for Mage the podcast. I will attempt to do the same thing. No one's going to go into this blind. and I'm super excited to see that text come out, and we'll get previews and so on as it approaches. Um, Kind of the last upcoming text we have is Faces of Magic. Hiromi, what's Faces of Magic?
So Faces of Magic is a collection of no fewer than 30 characters. I think originally the goal was like 25 characters for Mage, and the idea was for them to reflect all of the traditions, characters from backgrounds that are unusual, things that like we haven't seen before, thing groups that are underrepresented. So me being me, I created a spreadsheet to help us internally with the book. I wasn't the developer, so like participating within the spreadsheet was entirely up to people. So my list of all the characters that exist in the book is not definitive, but it is pretty rad. Um, so we have things like a hermetic mage who is desperate to become a sleeper again, which is like, if you think about what it would be like to be a mage and come to the conclusion, I would be so tired. That's this character. Their name is Mickey, and they are very powerful in forces. Uh, there's also representation within the Akashiana, including, um, let me fact check myself real quick, actually. Uh, which did I submit?
Yeah, and just as Hiromi's going through this, the thing I've seen from just the one or two examples is the thing that's super powerful for me is it gives us more examples of how people actually do magic. So it's kind of interesting. In M20, we probably have the most words, the highest ratio of words to actual sample characters, because we only got a few in Book of Secrets, and then like a few in some of the later supplements. And Faces of Magic is really filling in that spot to say, no, this is how the conversation of focus works, how paradigm, practice, and instrument go together. Sorry, podcaster instinct of not having dead air. What was that, Hiromi?
I I just wanted to uh, the reason for the dead air that you've so graciously and rapidly filled is that I couldn't remember which book Hyunmyoung and Hyunmyoung Sunim went into.
Hmm.
So Hyunmyoung Sunim is the um,
Primus?
Primus for the Akashiana. But depending on your campaign, depending on future fates, he might be dead. He might have been lost slash destroyed in the Ascension Warriors attack. He might be trapped in the Umbra. There's tons of things that could have happened. And just as an aside, Sunim is a Buddhist title.
Hmm.
And so it is the way that you tell the Primus version from the new version, who appears in um, Lore of the Traditions. Lore of the Traditions has the what if he did die? Well, he's an Akashiano, so he has reincarnated as a trans man hip hop artist who unites communities through hip hop, and that's super fun. But that is in Lore of the Traditions, which uh, folks have already seen. Folks have not yet seen the new. I was about to say incarnation, but that's confusing. The latest version of the original Hyunmyoung Sunim. So, like, assuming that he survived, this is what he looks like.
Mhm.
He is all kinds of powerful and has connections with uh, well, everyone really. Um, there's um, uh, Polmari, who is with the Kavadi, specifically the Red Spear Society. I believe Polmari has shown up previously, but if not, um, is a particularly hot-headed and charismatic um, figure. He they drown like they awakened when they drowned with their family off the coast of Chile, and now they have just the largest chip on their shoulders, and justifiably so.
Yeah.
Like uh, Tom Laughing Eagle's in here. We I should try and find the future fates for Laughing Eagle because uh, actually I might not have.
There's a
Nope,
bit.
no, I did.
I think there's a bit
Sorry,
of
it was
a touch on it in lore.
yeah. So with future fates, there's a variety of things that could have happened. He could be dead, he could be fine, he could be trapped somewhere in the Umbra because the destruction of Concordia just sort of forced him to find a way to live out in the Umbra. And it is also possible that maybe Laughing Eagle is fine and just retired. And it's like, no, I'm done. I get to be done. Fuck you. Which, while not the most exciting possibility, dude's been through a lot. You can have him be done. You
Yeah.
can have him retire.
And kind of the interesting thing about this is we haven't gotten many character sheets for the Primi before. We
Mhm.
didn't get them in Sorcerer's Crusade. We never got them in M20 in second edition. We just kind of got these little bits. And I know at least for me, for the Celestial Chorus, I provided Angeli Soledad's character sheet. We got one for as you mentioned, the Akashiana Primus. I'm not going to attempt to do the name because I'm going to default to saying Hemyong, which is how I've said it wrong for 30 years at this point. So we're getting statted out characters at a bunch of those kind of different levels.
One of the
And
most
yeah.
fun things for me working on Lord of the Traditions, a book that I had just a hoot working on the entire time, was I got to stat out a couple of signature characters that had never
Mhm.
had stats before. So like Jody Blake, that was awesome to be able to do, you know, stuff like that. It was super cool to be able to dive in and fill out these characters that either never had stats or never had like full complete write ups before. Um, so that being able to do that in these last few books has been, for me, like a joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of Primi, Senex also appears in the book. I didn't write him, so I can't give you details. But I imagine is just as stately and awesome as he has been.
Nature and demeanor are both listed as just Senex. So I thought that was a bold move, but one I fully understand. Um, any other thoughts before we take one or two questions in our waning minutes? Are we allowed to go over in time, or do we need to cut out at
Um,
the end, Travis?
we do have, I do have another panel I have to get to shortly after this and get tech set
Okay,
up for, but if we want to squeeze in another uh,
sure.
question, we can do that.
One is, could we do an overview of the changes to the crafts? Nope, that's what the book's for. That is well beyond scope for us just doing that high level overview. A bunch of things are different, a bunch of things are same. I know it's vague. Another one is it okay to make an Ask the Mage devs page in the OPP forums like the Scion one? I think that would be interesting just because M20 has been in a lot of different hands. And I don't think there
Yeah.
is, and part of the fun of M20 is each of those devs has kind of left slightly different fingerprints on it. And I don't know that there would be a lot of things that would go beyond what is in the text. I don't know that like Travis or Hiromi had a grand plan that they didn't get to necessarily implement to answer some fundamental questions in it. So I don't know that that might have the same power as maybe Scion.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I'm happy to talk to answer
sure.
people's questions on stuff like that, but like, yeah, I think that's the heart of it, at least for me. I did everything in my power to get everything I wanted on the page. And the one big M20 thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of this was I worked on M20 Sorcerer, which was
Mm.
kind of like my career goal.
Mhm.
So now I can just retire and be happy, I suppose. But yeah, with all those things, I got to say what I wanted to say. I had one more book that I would have loved to have done that I don't didn't get to do. Maybe one day it'll show up on the Storyteller's Vault. We'll see. But other than
How,
that,
how do you feel about there being more M20 books than V20 books? I remember during, I think, the Kickstarter for Technocracy Reloaded, someone said, "Hey, this is doing better than some of the V20 ones." And my reply was, "We have, you may have a larger herd, but we have a larger cult." So, so again, just said as a fan of it and in no way representing the authors. Um, and I guess one last one for Hiromi. Uh, is it the case that any M20 paradigm could be a motif for Sorcerer, or a Scion in Scion?
Um, Probably. I would have to think
That seems like a reasonable answer.
more
Yeah.
granularly to decide like if there are any that wouldn't. But I think you could probably structure things in a way that they would be. Um, we're over time, but someone wanted to know about Hollow Unwrotes. There was one called Riding the Rails, which is the idea of an interdimensional railway that's just like you're basically like hopping on interdimensional basically just like there's
Tram
this
stops, stepping
idea of
stones.
this
Yeah.
transit system that exists that the universe uses, and Hollow Ones can just sort of steal a ride, which I think just fits the idea of Hollow Ones very, very well.
I'm sure this is like my, 90s edge lord kid showing, but I find it very hard to top fuck off and die. Like, it's kind of the coolest route.
But I guess if that brings us to time, Travis, thank you so much for your time as developer and author for Mage.
Thank you.
Hiromi, thank you so much for your time as developer and author for Mage and the perspectives that you've brought to it. I'm super thrilled that we probably have a year more of M20 still coming out. And if this is the kind of stuff that gets you excited, put your thing out on the Storyteller Vault, rate and review. Keep playing our games. Even if M5 never happens, no one can take M20 from us. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Take care of yourselves and each other. We'll be back here on this channel in about 30 minutes for the Trinity Continuum actual play. In the interim, I'm going to go ahead and send you all off to our good friends over at Simulacra TV. So hang out for the raid, and we'll see you real soon.